Welcome to the November 10th, 2016 session of the City of Prescott Planning and Zoning Commission. To start off with, I'm not going to introduce anybody this morning. Really, I can't remember all your names all the time anyway. Except, welcome our Councilman Lamerson. Appreciate you being here. All right, first item of business, entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Yeah, move to approve the minutes of the October 27th meeting.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion, a second. Any discussion? No? Well, everybody in favor, raise your right hand. Say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right, we'll move right to the first regular public hearing item. A special use permit for the installation of a cell tower off Copper Basin Road by Verizon Wireless. George?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to defer to the city's attorney first, and then we'll proceed with staff presentation.
Okay.
Thank you. Similar to what we did at the last meeting, I'm going to go through kind of a list of 5 things that the commission and or the council can.
That's not working.
Is this on?
It is a little closer to it.
Test. Cannot do in regards to dealing with cell tower applications. Again, this comes between the interplay with our Land Development Code and the Telecommunications Act of 1996. Again, the 5 limitations on this commission and on the city are these. The city cannot discriminate among providers of functionally equivalent services. In other words, you can't favor one provider over another. Number 2, the city cannot prohibit or have the effect of prohibiting the provision of personal wireless services. Number 3, the city must act within a reasonable period of time on a cell tower application. Number 4, the city cannot deny cell tower applications on the basis of environmental effects of radio frequency emissions. That is always a big one that comes up. And I just want to read verbatim from the federal statute in this regard. This is the Telecommunications Act of 1996. That states, no state or local government, we are a local government, or instrumentality thereof may regulate the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities on the basis of environmental effects of radio frequency emissions to the extent that such facilities comply with the Commission's regulations concerning such emissions. And the Commission there is the FCC, or the Federal Communication Commission, that in 1996, just prior to the Telecommunications Act going into effect, came up with standards regarding radio emissions. And those have been kind of rolled into the Act of 1996 and upheld by the courts. So if the commissioners tell you, we really can't consider that information, and they only want to take limited or no testimony on radio emissions, that's why. The 5th thing that the city cannot do is if the city denies an application, it must do so in writing, and the decision must be supported by substantial evidence. And that's basically a review of all the cases that have come out interpreting the Telecommunications Act of 1996. For purposes of this meeting, if you have to address the commission, you address the chairman. You don't engage me, you don't engage staff, you don't engage the applicant, you don't engage each other. Please address your comments to the chairman, and if he wants an answer from staff, he'll ask for it. And finally, the Planning and Zoning Commission is only a recommending body. It'll make a recommendation to the council of whether they think a particular application should be approved or not approved. And they do a lot of the legwork in as far as taking testimony or gathering evidence and comparing that to what our Land Development Code allows for regarding the placement and siting of cell towers. So that's kind of some of the background on how we proceed with these meetings. a lot of those lists of 5 things that we cannot do are probably more directly dealing with the city council. This body's really looking at the land development code to determine whether or not the siting of the tower is appropriate. So if we get into things like the lease, previous legal agreements, that's something that the council is going to be in a better position to deal with. So those are kind of the rules of the game as far as how this commission proceeds.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? No? Okay, George.
So, Mr. Chairman, this is the public hearing for SUP 16001. This is a request for special use permit to site a cell tower on property along Copper Basin Road. That property is accessed via Wickwood Lane. I'll show you that in just a moment. Generally speaking, this is just a view of the area with our aerial photography, just to give you a general concept of the density of development in the vicinity. Specific request is to place a cell tower with an equipment compound located just to the north side of the city's existing water tank on this water tank site. The property has frontage on Copper Basin Road. As you can see, it's what's called a flag lot. That's a rather common lot arrangement. It's also rather common to not have access via the flagpole portion of the lot. We have many residential lots that are developed that way. Access is provided via Wickwood Lane and an easement into the property for vehicular access to the site. The initial proposal for the antenna places it closer to the east property line than the standard setback requirement, which would be the equal measurement of the fall distance of the pole. In this case, it would require approximately an 75 to 80 foot setback, depending on whether we measure to the top of the antenna or the top of the fake pine tree camouflage that's to be attached to the antenna, or proposed to be attached to the antenna. The height of the antenna is proposed to be 85 feet to the top of the fake pine tree. A portion of this is necessary to be above the antenna to actually screen it from view. That, again, is not uncommon with proposals associated with stealth antennas. They're called stealth. The intent is to produce a fake pine tree look that blends in with surrounding properties or surrounding topography. The existing water tank is approximately 35 feet tall, so this will extend well above the height of the existing water tank. The water tank is painted a shiny dark green, as you saw in the aerial photography. It is visible and obvious on the site. The Land Development Code has a series of criteria which you have, and we've produced for you in staff reports, and you've dealt with in previous applications. Review criteria associated with special use permits for cell towers. One of the things that inevitably comes up with cell tower installations is the district height maximum limit. There are height limitations that are part of each and every one of our zoning districts. Generally speaking, those height limitations go up to 50 feet. There are special provisions that allow some of our districts to go beyond that height, and there are specific criteria in the telecommunications section of a land development code that allows council to waive the maximum height, given the fact that antennas generally must extend beyond the height of buildings surrounding them. The zoning district assumes buildings are all going to be the same height. With a communications facility, it must extend beyond the height of those buildings or other obstructions, so there's a waiver provision that's built in for the city council. That is something that will be addressed as this process moves on to the city council for their action. There's similarly a criteria allowing council to waive the setback criteria. Again, the Land Development Code requires a setback equal to the height of the structure. I will point out that it's unclear as to whether that setback is to the formal structure of the tower or to the fake pine tree accompaniment that covers it. we would assume the structure of the tower, because any damage done in a fall would be by the structure and not by the fake pine branches. So we have two provisions that the City Council has authorized through the Land Development Code to waive criteria. Those are things you can take into consideration in your recommendation, though it doesn't take a specific recommendation from you to do those waivers. If you want to include them in a recommendation, you're certainly welcome to do that. At this point, staff will stop its presentation, take questions from you if you have them. We certainly have had a lot of written correspondence provided. We've sent 2 supplements to you after the agenda packet was produced, and I believe we also received a letter today that was given to you this morning in front of your chairs. If you have any questions for us, we'd be happy to answer those. And again, this is the formal public hearing, so we will be opening it up to the public as soon as you're ready.
Okay, commissioners, any questions? How many, I don't have the original paperwork, how many petition signers were there? I think I counted.
I don't believe I have a count
50.
in the staff report. I don't.
Like 54 or something like that?
There were quite a number, yes, sir.
Pardon?
We're up to 67.
67, okay. I think the original one I had, there was 54. Okay, just curious. Because I didn't have a copy of it in your package. So, okay, Verizon representative, anything you want to add to what we talked about last meeting?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Again, my name is Reg Destry. I'm working with Verizon Wireless on this site. I'm not going to go through my whole presentation again, as that's already on the record. I did want to just go through a few of the things. Some questions had come up last time regarding the location, so kind of pertinent to the 2 real questions here of waiver for the setback and for the height. And Nikhil, the RF engineer, will be coming up to address a few questions as well, and just give some further information. As you've likely seen, I know there was some question of the need because primarily this site is for capacity, for overall network strength. But as you've seen, there are actually homes to the east in Timber Ridge that will be receiving coverage, new coverage from this site. And in fact, many of those folks have sent in some letters in support of this site because as you get down the hill to the east, you will find that you get into those trees and there's not even coverage down there at all. So in addition to the primary capacity issue, there are in fact folks fairly close by that will have coverage from this. So I did want to point that out. As far as the setback, there was a question posed as to the setback of the tree from the tank itself. I did measure that, and when I do talk about measurements, I'm talking about to the center of the structure, to the pole structure. It's about 60 feet from the pole to the tank, and obviously the pole is taller than that. I would point out that there are a lot of these throughout town at other tank sites where there are poles that are within that 1-to-1 setback as well. In fact, Indian Hills Tank has 5 poles that are within that distance. Just to give you some idea, and in fact the Prescott North site, there's some larger towers up there. I believe there's 3 or 4 towers there that are also within their 1-to-1 setback from existing water tanks. So this is not something that's at all out of the ordinary to be within that 1-to-1. And the reason we've located on the property where we're proposing is because of the topography and the existing use by the city, and it just kind of put us in that being really the only location on the property that works for the city and to fill the need we have. As far as things we would look to do to kind of mitigate some issues that came up last time and have come up previously at neighborhood meetings, for the aesthetics, obviously we're proposing a pine tree. As I said last time, this is probably the most appropriate use of a pine tree that I've ever come across, being in such a dense forest. The noise question had come up. I know Janet Conrad specifically had brought that up, and there's a few things. There is an emergency backup generator on the site, and what we would propose to do, the site will meet all city noise requirements, but what we would propose to do is put what we call a type 1 sound enclosure on the generator itself to keep down the noise level from that while it's running. And additionally, something we've done before is limit the run times, and that can be done as part of any approval to say 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, because the generator does need to cycle about 30 minutes a week or at least a couple times a month to just keep the seals good and everything, and for regular maintenance. So we can certainly take a restriction on that. The visits to the site, there was concern that there would be a lot of traffic from this. The site, when built, takes about 30 to 45 days to build. Most of that time, there isn't even anyone there. There's a lot of time for concrete to set. When there are folks there, there are usually a couple of work trucks there. And at one point, a crane does need to come in. Some cement trucks will need to come in, but there's not a large increase in traffic. And then ongoing, the amount of visits to the site, usually it's visited by one work truck every 4 to 6 weeks for regular maintenance. I mean, it's exceedingly minimal given the fact that the site's already visited by work trucks for the city's maintenance and use of that property. Going back to the issue of noise, there are mitigating things we could do there, as far as we could certainly place some landscaping. I'm going to move over here. I can kind of show you locationally. So this is a zoomed in version of the aerial, and the most visible location for this site is going to be the Conrad home here, and our site is right here. We would certainly be willing and able to put some landscaping on the north side of the compound. This would at least help to visually decrease the impact on that neighboring property from the ground. As far as additional noise consideration, it might help a little, but we would certainly be willing to switch over to a block wall. What we're proposing right now is chain link to be in line with what's there, and a block would certainly cut down on any noise going away from the equipment while it is running. So if that's something that's deemed to be appropriate, we can certainly do that. We would need to run it by utilities to make sure that design worked okay, but I can't imagine it would be an issue. We had just sort of matched what was there with the chain link now. So these are primarily the things that are being proposed to try and mitigate the impact on the neighborhood. And I don't know if you have any specific questions. If not, I'll turn it back over to Nikhil to go into a little more, answering some of the more technical questions that had come up last time.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Plan Commission. I'm Nikhil Jadhav. I'm the RF engineer for Verizon and also the community outreach representative. So here's the current coverage map of the area, and it shows the red circled area is where the Timber Ridge community is, where currently there's a coverage issue. And with the proposed Pony Soldier site, that area gets the coverage enhancement that they dearly need. The primary purpose of this site is, although not just coverage, but also capacity. So, and Verizon, when it tries to handle capacity issues, it's not just, it's a phased approach. So what we do is, currently in this area, we have sites here and sites here that are trying to serve this entire area. And when we start seeing capacity constraints on our resources, we try to first do modifications on our existing towers and add resources to our existing towers. But after we are done exhausting all those options, that's when we try to add more elements to our network to add capacity. So right now we have this Indian Gardens cell site that's been approved and it's in our plans. And even after adding in the gardens, we would still have our AZ2 Francis site that would still be facing capacity challenges next year, as seen on this capacity throughput data. Throughput is a measurement of the quality of the user experience when they try to access, let's say, web browsing or emails or any kind of data over their phone. So this is the trend for last 1 year, and you could see that their experience has been going down in terms of, the data speeds, average data speeds that they can experience. And there was a question raised during the last discussion is, why do I need a site when my phone shows 5 bars? And we have all experienced in our lifetimes when we go to the airport or large venues, if we see 5 bars on our phone, but when we actually try to make a data call, a voice call or a data session, and we can't make it. And that's because of the capacity constraints or resource constraints on the network. So it's kind of similar to, let's say in a house, if you have a dedicated internet connection from your cable provider. And when you're just one person trying to access that internet connection, it would be super fast as advertised by your cable provider. But at the same time in the house, if you have 5 kids trying to stream their games or stream their media on the phone, as well as 20 different neighbors trying to access that same cable provider because that's a shared connection, then your speeds are going to get bogged down, and sometimes you may even be denied a connection because the resources are maxed out. And that's the exact problem that we face here. Now, today we are not facing the problem of people getting denied the use because we always try to forecast our usage 12 to 24 months out in advance. But we see that problem that can occur somewhere in 2018, and that's why we have to plan in advance, because building a cell site can take anywhere between 18 to 24 months. So those are the main reasons why we are looking for this site. And the other question that popped up last time was, why do we need antenna placed at a 70-foot center line? So looking at the terrain or the surrounding pine trees that are around where the cell site is going to go, the average height of those pine trees is about 50 feet. There are a couple of them that are 70 feet, but the average is about 50 feet. And if you place the antenna anywhere on the tower like this, the antenna pattern or the signal does not propagate just in a straight line. It's more of a cone shaped. And so you have to make sure that the main signal that's going to propagate has to be able to clear the top of the pine trees that are there so that it can reach out to everywhere, especially the Timber Ridge community, as we showed in the previous slides, that it has to reach out. So we have to have certain level of clearance between the bottom of the antenna and the top of the pine tree. So right now at 70 feet, the bottom of the antenna would be somewhere around 66 feet. Gives us about 15 feet clearance so that the signal can propagate and also leaves a little amount for trees to grow in future, and it will still not bother the signal to get blocked. So those are the main reasons why this particular center line was chosen. And in terms of some concerns that were raised as to what Verizon does for RF safety, this is some additional information that Verizon is always following FCC guidelines, and there's some more information that can be found out as to what Verizon does to follow this guidelines.
Could you put up that first map you had that shows existing coverage?
Sure.
So the red is marginal, right?
The red, as the legend says, is coverage marginal in building and maybe okay outdoors.
Okay.
So you could be having decent coverage outdoors, but you would definitely have problems when you're in buildings. So either inside stores or inside the houses.
Where is Timber Ridge on this map?
It's the red circle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, there it is. All right.
yeah.
Didn't read it. And then the blue is really bad, right?
The blue is almost no coverage.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I got a question.
Any questions, commissioners?
Thank you, sir. You said that it's not necessarily the coverage, but it's the bandwidth?
Yes, it's resource constraints, yes.
So even though you might be in the red, you may have no bandwidth in that area? Is that what you're...
Right.
Cell
So
phones might work in red?
You may even be, like, if I go back to the map, so red is where you definitely have a coverage issue. But the yellow and green are the ones where you have better and best coverage. So you may even be in the green areas, but you still may not be able to do a data session because
of
of the resource constraints.
The
Yes.
number of people taking the
Number of
bandwidth
people.
away.
So it's kind of like the pipe is limited to support 50 users, say, for example, and if you are the 51st user,
Right.
you can't do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Destry, you ever heard of a pole falling over?
I'm not specifically familiar with sites coming over of this type specifically.
I mean, have you ever heard of one of these poles falling over, since that seems to be an issue for some people?
I have not. I've never seen a pine tree or a monopole that's come down.
Okay.
These sites are designed usually for 105 mile per hour wind speed to meet whatever the current requirements are. And I know it does get windy here, and that's certainly a reasonable question. But just from Arizona alone, we have a lot of sites, and a lot of them are up on mountaintops that get exposed to a lot higher wind. And no, I'm not aware of one.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioners, any questions? All right.
Hang on.
Thanks a lot. Well,
Excuse me.
take your time. Take your time.
Thank you. I think my question is to Mr. Pedracki, and what's unusual about this particular case is that the property owner is the city of Prescott. That there was a sale somewhere back where the owner of the property, and I believe the name was Ballantyne from the letters that we got, entered into a sales agreement with the city of Prescott for the purchase of this land for a water tower. And according to the complaint letter or the denial letter from Mr. Ballantyne that I read, it points out that certain things were in that, and I don't know whether they were, but my recommendation would be on this. I have no problems with the tower and the location and the engineering, providing there wasn't something in a legal document when the conveyance of the deed that prohibited it. So how do I structure a recommendation today, not knowing whether or not the city did have provisions in that deed of transfer when they bought the property that had restrictions on what they can do? I know some of it is view shed, obstruction, etc., that will be used for the water tower. But I'd like to know whether or not a legal opinion has been rendered on the validity of Mr. Ballantyne's complaint concerning the conditions that were in that conveyance when the city got the property.
Yeah, I think you're referring to a letter dated November 2nd, 2016, signed by a gentleman named John Ballantyne from Tucson, Arizona. This is the first time I've seen the letter, was this morning. No, we haven't had, from the legal department, the opportunity to go back and pull that sales agreement. One, to see if it says what Mr. Ballantyne says it says. So you have a couple of options, I suppose. One is we can get that information for you. We can set up an executive session for your next meeting. We can take a look at it and see if that's going to affect your decision. The other thing is you can make a recommendation or a denial recommendation to the city council indicating that this is something you feel is worthy of further research. I don't know whether, this talks about mitigating the tank. It doesn't obviously talk about any future uses on the property. And I don't know if the property he's referring to is sort of the easement that the proposed tank is going on at this point, or a chunk of land that the water tank sits on. I just don't know enough about this. This is the first time I'm
In
hearing
other
it.
words,
Okay.
I'm in a position today, if this was ready for a recommendation and a vote, to vote a yes on the proposal, providing there is nothing in that particular deed when the property was conveyed that would prohibit it, and that would be a legal decision that you'd have to make before it goes to council.
You can do it that way if you
But
want
you
to.
might have to help me structure a resolution.
Okay.
Right. And again, it
I'll
looks,
tell you-
and I don't know if the deed will deal with it or not. It sounds like he's referring to a purchase agreement, that information versus
All right.
any deed restrictions.
Lynn, I'd really rather you held your conclusions and those
Okay.
till we get behind after the public hearing's finished.
Okay.
Because I think there's still a lot of things to talk
I'll
about.
go back to sleep.
Yeah, I'm going to have more questions on that agreement too. But I want to open it up to the public. And we pretty much know how you guys feel. We've got Timber Ridge, letters from Timber Ridge and a few people who say, please help our phone coverage. And then we have a petition with over 60 names from people near the tank, around the tank, that don't want it in terms of property values and aesthetic reasons and other reasons. We can't discuss the environmental impact, but there were quite a few letters explaining why they didn't want it. So I wanted to open it up, but I'd like you guys to give me some new information. We pretty much heard from a lot of people at the last meeting, and we pretty much know where they're coming from. I would like to ask, is Mr. Ballantine here?
No, I've had many conversations with him. He is not.
Okay. Right. So,
Last meeting.
he was. Okay, I need you up at the mic, and I need your name and address.
Brian Murphy. I live on 2550 West Copper Basin. I'm right across from the property.
Okay.
I wrote the paper you have on the line of sight to the homes and the
Okay.
elevations and the 3D, which I want to address. Is this, Mr. Ballantyne, yes, he had sent me a copy of that letter also, explaining that it was under his understanding that the land was sold, that 2-acre parcel, so he would have access. His other access is from the flag and right in front of my driveway. It would cost him $100,000 to re-engineer a bridge across that and drainage through there, so he can only parse that 8 acres he owns at that point in time into 2-acre parcels. So his solution was the city wanted to buy the land and put a water tank, and he came to an agreement with you, with, according to him, the understanding being that the water tank would be the only thing there, would become an industrial area, which it seems to be coming now. So that was it, because he wanted to maintain the quality of life of everybody around him, because he's going to develop that land too, 3 more lots, if he could subdivide to that, which he should be under the current zoning right in. So that's his plan. And that was his understanding. Now, legalities, I guess your lawyers will have to look at that. And he is a lawyer for Van Osteen, I think, down in Tucson. So
Okay.
he's familiar with the legalities of this. I'm sure when he wrote the contract, he put in what he wanted. From my side, and they touched on, I want to talk about this now because he touched on, and you guys said you cannot touch for environmental reasons on RF, and I think you stated that unless there was a safety concern. This is the FCC limits for the towers, for the frequencies Verizon's planning on putting in there. This is from their document, from the FCC. Now, to visualize, it's very hard to visualize radiation, and I'm not going to say I've modeled this totally, but I have modeled it to give you an idea what radiation looks like. And
I
this-
thought we weren't going to be talking about,
Well, yeah, but there's a
Radiation.
reason why I am talking about this.
I mean, I'm
because-
sure that that Verizon is going to build this according to FCC regulations
Again,
and not
let me
exceed
explain
those.
myself, though. If you would, give me a chance to explain why I'm bringing this up. It's,
Okay.
if I can't explain it, then
Well, we weren't supposed, I mean, environmentally, the radio frequencies were not supposed to be an issue.
under the safety limits, correct?
Well,
Is
it's-
that not what he just read, that under the safety limits?
I'm assuming that Verizon's going to be within FCC guidelines as far as safety.
Oh, well, I would like to see the engineering on the house that's 85 feet at the same height as that tower then, or 85 meters from that tower. If you will look, the radiation beam comes right across that house. Two houses, one's within 123 meters, one's within 85 meters. Everything I've ever read on this says you should not be within 100 meters of that tower on the main low beam. Now, the engineer's here, he could explain this to us. And I wish you'd
Okay.
have a model to show me that that house is not going to be affected by this tower. And I want to see the engineering on that. And if we do, you put this tower in, we put RF meters up there and we see this is above the safety limits. Because if you go out, I put all the safety limits, all those numbers coming across are past the safety limits recommended by the FCC from their formula for a safe maximum permissible exposure. So they're saying it's dangerous if you're within that area. So I think it needs to be looked at. I'm not opposed to cell towers. I make my living on cell towers. I write applications for cell phones.
Okay.
This is a weird area because the homes are so close and elevated to the tower. I explained it in my other paper to you, where I drew the lines and 3D modeled this whole thing. You have 16 homes within that area.
Okay.
This is not a usual area. You put towers on top of buildings and you put them on top of mountains for one reason. There's no homes around them.
Okay.
Here you have homes right around it, within 85 meters of that tower. So I think you need to look at that. So the people that are opposed to this, there's 57 people within 500 meters of parcel owners here. Nobody next to that area wants it. As we explain here, every one of those red squares has signed a petition against this. If you see in the center, there's the cell tower. Everybody around it does not want it. Now, if you want to go ahead and put it in there against everybody's wishes, then that's fine. I guess we'll have to fight it some other way, but people don't want it. Now, I understand people want cell service. I want them to have cell service. I'm a Verizon customer. I'm not fighting it. I don't think this is the best spot because of the radiation levels coming across, because it's unsafe. I agree with him, and the law states that if it isn't, if they have adhered to it, they haven't proven to me that they've adhered to the laws yet, because they haven't engineered it up. And I'd love to have
Okay.
the engineer show me the model where these homes will not be affected. They're 85 feet at 6,000 foot elevation to the tower's panels.
Well, I'm going to ask the engineer to respond to your concerns there as soon as you're finished there.
So they're basically, here's where we stand on this. We have 57 petition signers within 500 meters of that tower, 9 within a mile, and I think 4 more within the city of Prescott that you get a little bit of people signing against cell towers. But
Okay. Got it.
alrighty.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Engineer, can you, now I want a brief response because we really don't want to get into this frequency thing, but he did bring up a point. I simply want your response.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just gonna put this slide up there so that people can have. So way the process worked with Verizon is, I saw the slide that was up there, I couldn't get the details of it. FCC has these guidelines that they came up after careful study of how the RF signal works, or how the RF signal propagates. And I, as an engineer, also, my background is in the same field, is we study how RF signal propagates. The guidelines come from what's the input level, what's the transmitting signal level is, and based on where it's located. So there's a difference in if I'm putting my transmitter here, which is 5 feet above the ground, or 10 feet above the ground, and how it's going to impact anybody standing here or when that signal transmitter is located 70 feet above the ground. There's a huge difference. The signal, when it propagates in the air, there is a tremendous fading. And by fading is what we call the loss through the air. And as signal propagates, it starts losing a lot of its power. And there is different characteristics, that's all details. But FCC looks at all that and comes up with a guideline. And when we, not just Verizon, but any cell phone provider that is adhered through FCC licensing, has to, whenever they complete a design, not even construction, not even building a cell site, but when I complete a paper design, I have to file my design with the FCC. I have to submit all my propagation maps, everything that my design shows that I'm going to have built. And those documents go over to FCC and I have to seek their approval. Our regulatory department sends those over to FCC. They get compared with the FCC guidelines. And only after we get the regulatory approval that these are within the FCC guidelines, then Verizon internally will provide approval to go construct this site. So until that is
Okay.
done, Verizon will not even allow me to construct the site, no matter how I
Yeah,
design it.
I understand, and I think we as a commission have to assume that Verizon's going to follow FCC guidelines. Ken?
I think we need to stop talking about RF frequency and get back to the land development code.
Well, I wanted
and the tower.
to, I just wanted a brief,
We're getting sidetracked with
brief
technical
answer.
talk here that we're not familiar with.
yeah, I understand.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I just wanted a brief answer, because to educate myself a little bit. Okay, anybody else in the audience like to speak? Ma'am, I need you to come down, and if you want to speak, I need your name and address, and because it's all being recorded.
My name is Elise Rose, and I am in Prescott,
Okay,
8631.
can you pull the mic down just a touch and speak
Sure.
right into
Just
it?
a quick question. When was the last time the FCC guidelines were updated? 1986. That's all, the only point I want to...
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Ma'am?
If they talk RF.
I know it.
I'm Leslie Schuler. I hope you don't fall asleep, Len, because we are the public, and we really
I'll
put
try to stay
we
awake
put our
from you,
faith in you guys, okay? And we know you've got a hard job here. Anyhow, I'm Leslie Schuler, and I live in Rancho Vista. I was here last time. I just wanted to bring here. I made a graphic, as you know, because we're up higher in that bowl. I wanted you to see some of the homes because I know you're busy. And I'm pretty sure you didn't drive up into Rancho Vista to see the top of the tower. I should say the tank. So I'm just doing this with my phone, so it's not very good photography. But we have Vista Ridge, which is on the backside. So there are many homes that they look currently at the water tank. This isn't the greatest view, but they see the top of the tank. I'm trying to imagine the 85-foot monopole, which will be, I guess, what did you say, 50 or 60 feet taller than that tank. So we clearly will have an unusual sort of tall thing that people will be looking at in Rancho Vista. So I just wanted you to see the one with the pavement there. That's just Mountain Laurel Road, and that's standing on the road itself. So just depending on the topography, there are many homes that can actually see the tank itself. As far as the rest of what I've written, I won't go through all of it because it seems your engineers and everything have talked about this, and you've thrown a lot of legal things at us. This is also just an issue because we live in a town called Prescott, Arizona, and I don't want us to forget that. And so what I want to say about that is that I read the packet you got today, at least most of it. I have only heard one person in Timber Ridge come to this meeting and speak and was worried about their cell coverage. I have spoken with people in Timber Ridge, and they have signed the petition, some of them. We did not go all out to Timber Ridge, so I'm curious to see really how the people generally feel in Timber Ridge. Wondered if there was any way to have the tower more near Timber Ridge, since the 60 homeowners in our area don't feel the need nor want to see it. We don't want it to affect our sales of our property and so forth. So I'm just going to conclude with a more of an emotional statement, because this is Prescott. This is Prescott. This is our national forest. Don't you all go out on your ATVs or camping and you go out to the edge of town? You want to get out there, right? So I wanted you to say that they've talked here about normally they don't like to put towers in residential neighborhoods if they don't have to. And it turns out that if we could mow our forest down, God forbid we have another fire, you would see there's actually a lot of homes out there. And I know we haven't even talked about fire. I'm sure we don't have to worry about it with this, but if you remember the Indian fire, as I look at that ridge, the slurry plane came right down into that bowl to save Timber Ridge and to save Rancho Vista. I don't even know how this works with firefighting crews. I mean, we have to do everything in our communities to protect the city of Prescott fire-wise. We are fire-wise people. We clean our lots. We do everything. So it boggles my mind to imagine a cell phone tower here. Now, finally, I just want to say that although our homes perhaps are not as visible because of the trees, we are indeed a large residential community made up of several adjoining neighborhoods. Investing in a home and life on the west end of town, on the edge of the National Forest, in a natural bowl-shaped topography of dips and hollows in the shadow of the mountains, and that includes RF shadow of the mountain. Inherently, it comes with an understanding that we are on the outskirts of Prescott, that we live in a possible data gap. Now, we have coverage right now, and I understand what they're saying, and they're looking to the future of 2018. We don't even have this tower up yet that's on the Indian Garden. That's about a mile and a half or less from us. So we are trusting their decision that we all need the data. And he's saying that, well, if you've got 5 or 6 kids in your home who need to surf and, watch videos, I'm confused by that, because I have Cable One, and we have Cable One and CenturyLink, and my understanding is we get home and we sync our phones to our Wi-Fi, and that's how we do our web surfing. So this feels kind of odd to me. But anyhow, I want to finally say that we're fire-wise communities that want to preserve the forests, the wildlife habitat, and the countryside that Prescott treasures. Please protect us from being in that visual viewshed, regardless of what the FCC says from 1996. I mean, I'm boggled. I'm just stunned. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Carolyn McCord, and my address is 2893 West Prospect Point. And what Leslie just said is pretty much exactly what my points have been as well. The bowl shape and those sight lines looking across, because this is so much taller than the current water tank that we see the top of, and the majority of the pine trees that are in the 40 to 50 foot height range. So this is almost twice as tall as the majority of the trees. But with the engineer here, something that I've been reading about, and I emailed Mr. Worley last night, and you have a copy of that, is about distributed antenna systems, and that's the upcoming way to get broadband to communities without putting tall cell towers everywhere, and especially in communities that are perhaps higher property values or have more vocal residents who don't want to see their scenic views messed with or property values messed with. And case in point was Paradise Valley and what they did. And the former vice mayor presented at the FCC in Washington, D.C., the story of Paradise Valley and what they did to improve cell coverage in that hilly terrain. And so I was just wondering if the engineer could explain to us about that technology, and if that's a potential here, and if we just held off on building the giant permanent towers for a year or two, maybe this technology would really be dialed in and everything and save us all of this.
Well, the only thing is we can only act on what they're asking for. We can't tell them, no, that's the wrong technology, go find some more other technology. We can only act the fact they're saying they need that tower, okay? And that's what we're here for today. And so anything beyond that is kind of over our head.
So you're saying other cities learning from their experiences?
I'm saying this is
even
what
when they were 4 years
ma'am,
ago?
this is what they're asking us for, and that's what we have to act on, yes or no.
I know,
I can't,
but you're
we can't,
also
I can't.
protecting your residents' properties.
We're not scientists. We can't sit here and tell the engineer, gee, maybe you need to go do something else. We have to act on what their request is, okay?
That sounds uninformed.
Do you understand what she's talking about, Mr. Engineer? As far as a alternative?
Yes, that alternative that she mentioned in Paradise Valley, but that requires every location. That's putting small cell sites, we call them small cells, putting small cells on right-of-way towers or right-of-way light poles. But that requires a existing fiber network to each of those right-of-way poles. And in major cities, that's in most cases existing. And if we have that kind of backhaul existing, then it's a possibility.
Okay.
But that's the underlying most important condition that we need to have.
Well, I think we're talking apples and
option.
oranges.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Ma'am?
Hi, I'm Sandy Swan, 1173 West Timber Ridge Road. You know, when I look at these pictures, the photos of the water tank and how you see the water tank, I think, boy, if you had a tree in front of there, it would look a hell of a lot better. That's my comment.
Okay. Yes, sir.
My name is Jim DeLosier. I live at 1355 Wickwood, and I agree that if there was a tree in front of that water tank, it would look better, but a cell tower that's much, much taller than a tree is not the same as a tree. It's very emotional for me, and I hear what you're saying, that you can't factor in information, and you have to make a decision on the information that you have at hand, and that's exactly what I'm asking you to do. Make a decision based on the information that you have on this particular unit in this particular place, with the proximity of these particular homes and the massive number of people that don't want it, with the reduction in the value of the homes all around it. I want you to make a decision on this particular piece of information with an affirmative no, 100% denied. It's taller than it's supposed to be. The setback is less than it's supposed to be. It's much closer to homes than normal. All of the information that you have at your hands should, if you're reasonable people, lead you to believe that this is not an appropriate application for our little town of Prescott.
Okay.
I'm willing to take questions from you if you have any for me, since I am the closest house to it, and I'm the one that has to put up with it. Well, none of you do.
Okay.
It doesn't appear that you guys are concerned with what my well-being is or what my desires are.
I don't understand where you're getting that from. Yeah. We're sitting here listening intently to everything you're saying, and we're taking information from anybody who's willing to give it to us. We've been doing, in the last meeting, we must have heard from 30 people. So I don't know where you're getting that we're not interested. That's not true at all.
Well, it seems from the input or from the feedback that you've been saying that you're leaning towards approving it. And if you're leaning towards approving it...
I don't get that feeling sitting here as the chairman.
Okay.
Okay? We're trying to be as neutral as we can. We always are.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else? Yes, sir.
Good morning. council members. I'm Kenny Beinlich. I live at 2140 West Bonner Lane, Prescott, Arizona. I am concerned with the cell tower. I have 2 properties that run parallel with the proposed cell tower. I had a market analysis done on my 2 properties. They're investment properties that I purchased quite a few years ago as a form of retirement. The water tank was proposed. I opposed it. Obviously, I lost that certain situation. I had a market analysis done on my properties before the tank was installed. My property values at that time were approximately $79,890. Since the water tank has been installed, I had another market analysis done on my properties. The property value has dwindled to $39,750. I talked to my numerous realtors that if the cell tower goes in, those 2 properties are basically worthless. And I feel that I moved in this area because I appreciate living in the Pines. It's quiet. We have very nice neighbors. Everybody works together. And I just see these improvements coming in. You consider them improvements. I consider them an eyesore. And our property values are definitely not going to benefit by the cell tower or the tank. I was promised when the water tank went in on the 2 properties that I would get stubs for water. I never received anything. The city used my 2 lots they put a porta-john on, they put gravel on, they used it for parking area for the equipment. I never filed a complaint. I never came down here, and I'm in construction as well. I understand it, and I just feel that we're being pushed and pushed in this area, and I don't understand why there isn't more cooperation with the city council on some of these issues. I was never notified that they could use my property for any parking of equipment or anything. Nobody came up to me and said, hey, do you mind if we park this equipment here? I've been very patient, very understanding about it. I just feel like we're being pushed in this area and pushed, and I'm just seeing my property value dwindle. I've worked hard all my life to pay taxes and to build up retirement, and I'd like you to take in consideration that if this was in your backyard, what your feelings would be about it and your property values. Thank you very much for your time and your consideration, and I really hope you give this some serious thought. Thank you.
We will. Thank you.
And we are.
Yeah, Mr. Destry, do you have a plan B?
Mr. Chairman, ultimately in this area, we've looked at some other options. It's the case that will be coming later is perhaps a little better way to show that, there might be other options in this particular location. That's why we're here. I mean, we are in a forested area because we need coverage in the area. This is a non-residential use, and there is not really a plan B here. This is the best site, if not the only site. The Unitarian Church is even closer to homes and further to the north and the east. This is the best location to fill the need with the least amount of impact. Obviously, there are many people here that would that disagree with that opinion, and whether they're questioning the need. I think primarily they're questioning the location. But there's not an option here to do, say, distributed antenna system. This is the site that is needed to fill the gap in the capacity and then the gap over in Timber Ridge. I did speak with Ms. Schuler. She had asked specifically if we could go over to Timber Ridge to the east, and there's nothing there. So I can go over here. I'll show you a map again quickly. This again is a map of the other locations that were considered, or in fact for Indian Gardens will be on air. This is the site up at the water tanks that has been approved and is going to be built likely within a few months. In that particular location, we're able to provide coverage about halfway back to the Pony Soldier location we're proposing right now, which is right here. So other things that we looked at were the Unitarian Church, which is a 1-acre parcel in a much denser residential area, and also there's a hill right here that ends up blocking it going to the north. This red area is the initial area we were looking in. So even within the initial area, we ended up with just that one option. And so with no existing verticality here, we looked at anything that was a non-residential use, and in this case it was city-owned property. That's 2 of the 3 things we look for if there's not already something there. So if this does not work, ultimately we would have to look at something like trying to go here, which will not fill the gap as well, or just give up on the idea entirely and not provide the coverage we need.
Okay, appreciate that.
One quick question. You mentioned the gap.
Yes.
I'm actually a little confused as to the coverage. And please correct me if I'm wrong, the neighbors here. Am I correct in understanding that the neighbors or the homes nearby this proposed tower have better coverage than some homes away from the tower, say in Timber Ridge or other places?
Yes, I can get the map here, but I can show you the aerial. So here, obviously...
Can't you just answer the question? I don't know what the aerial is going to do.
Oh, okay.
Are the people in that area, do they have...
The folks in this area have better
coverage than some of the people further away from where this proposed tower is?
Most of them would, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, commissioners, any questions of, well, Mr. Destry's while he's there?
Yeah, you know, what do you have, 30 or, you've got quite a few towers throughout the community. And I know where a lot of Verizon towers are, and AT&T and so on and so forth. If you looked at residential near towers, we've been talking about within 500 feet you might have 60 homes here or something, but that's not really unusual, is it? What we've been able to do in the past is in terms of implementing cell towers, and you in fact do end up with residents within the 500 feet. You know, like in downtown, there's a large number of residents downtown and all that, and so are we really doing something different here to allow a tower to be within 500 feet of some residences, even though it might be within this zoning versus another zoning that might be more practical for it? But
there are a lot of sites throughout Prescott and over in Prescott Valley that are within that 500 feet. I mean, the one that would pop to my mind is the City Park over in Prescott Valley. At Viewpoint Park, that site is across the street from a line of homes. So, and
houses are not up.
Okay. All right. Any further questions, Mr. Destry, while he's here? No?
Yeah, I do. First of all,
Phil.
I wanted to thank Verizon for taking the time, effort, and expense to try to mitigate at least some of the immediate impacts, whether it's visual, whether it's sound. Those are important. And I personally, regarding the other comments that the previous gentleman made, am very concerned about our ability to make decisions locally. The best government is local government. Unfortunately, we have a federal government and a state government that continue to take our ability to make decisions away from us. This FCC Act of 1996 restricts us to denying these types of applications based upon substantial evidence. Now that's evidence. It's not opinion, it's not speculation, it's not claim. And unless we have evidence, we can't deny these things. So I would wish that that were different. Fortunately, we have a new president that might be able to impact some of these federal handcuffs that we're restrained by. So at this point...
well, Phil, can you hold that thought? Because I want to finish the public hearing before we go behind the table here. So if you could hold that final thought, I'd appreciate it. All right, anybody else in the audience like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, gentlemen. Thank you again, Chairman. My name is Janet Conrad. I spoke last time a couple weeks ago,
right,
and own 2 properties that are immediately in the viewshed. Our property boundaries actually touch where that city property is. And then, of course, the easement, which is a public utility easement, goes on both of my properties. So just to remember. I want to start with this, if I could. And I know we've talked about, I won't go into any depth about the residential area, but you know this is a residential area. And in this City of Prescott Land Development Code, the very first line there for telecommunications facilities, the purpose of it is, if you read it there, it says the regulations are intended to provide for the development of wireless communication services, which obviously that's what they're trying to do, while at the same time protecting residential areas and land use from potential adverse hazards and encouraging them to go to non-residential. And I know I don't want to beat this up again, but I feel like, I guess, this is an easy target for Verizon because you guys have to listen. They went to one church, they said no, they come to the city. I cannot believe that there's not other places they can look. It might be more expensive. It might take more time. It may take them a little bit extra effort to go ahead and do that. They might have to lay some more fiber optic lines. So obviously this is an easy pick because it's a city of property. But in the interest of what Prescott is, I think your own code says we want to try to not do residential. We want to try not to impact financial values of homes, any sort of site or any sort of fire danger. That's why this is here. That's why it's the first thing listed. So I guess my point is I'm encouraging you to say, we're not saying that there aren't little pockets of coverage that aren't there. It's in every town, it's in every hilly community, but there's got to be another option. Indian Gardens is not even up and running yet. So there is a possibility that's not even needed, and we're approving something right now with all these setbacks and the setback variance and the property values and the height are things that could possibly go somewhere else. Not to mention another one, Proposition 207 is also a legal document saying, you know, if we do decide to go down this road, there is some protection for us property owners to say, you know, if we do have financial loss, that possibly the city could be in charge of reimbursing us for that. My husband and I actually had a appraisal done earlier this year on our main property on Copper Basin Road. 2 years ago, we had one on our Wickwood property. So we do have those appraisals. And then about a month ago, we did some comps, which, you know, it has gone up considerably. In fact, the economy's been better here with homes values right now. So there is proof. There can be a definite proof if this tower goes in. But so there are some other legal things that are on our side with 207 that you can deny this tower. So we're not saying that Verizon shouldn't be around. We're just asking, please, take it out of our residential area. Go have them do a little bit more homework. I can't believe there's no other options out there. There's other hillsides, there's other places, there's the forest. Might be more expensive for them, but it would maybe even provide better coverage.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Like I said, we have to act on what they're asking for. Anyone else? Yes, sir? And I'd like to kind of cut this short. I think we kind of know where everybody in the audience stands.
Doug McCord, 2893 West Prospect Point. Just a couple of things to add. The comment was made that there's no fiber optic infrastructure for small cell sites. there was not fiber optic infrastructure in Paradise Valley 2, so we saw them put it in. So that's a bogus argument. 2, the sound, probably the third meeting prior to this, the equipment, they says no louder than a couple of residential cooling units. I think many comments have been made before that this area is unique in topography and sound bounces around very easily. I get amazingly annoyed at my neighbor's air conditioning when it goes off at all times of the year. And this is running 24/7 to cool this equipment. We live in an extremely quiet neighborhood. The third point, I think, is incredibly, from my perspective, this is an incredibly deceptive presentation by Verizon. Reg keeps up putting up very old aerials which do not show all the houses that are in the area. It's easy to get to update aerials. To me, it's very deceptive to downplay the density around this location. And they also, all the presentations do not seem to acknowledge any of the topography. I've not seen a topography map shown to anybody on what this location is. I'd like for the folks opposed to this to be able to see the FCC application, because I can just imagine these applications that go to the FCC are based on a flat surface, and this is the radiation coming out, and so everybody within so many and such a radius of these towers, you know, it's in a safe zone. But as Brian pointed out, there are several houses directly in the beam path of these antennas, which I do not believe are taken account for. I would like, at least before you make a decision, to have that information and data presented to the Planning Commission, if not to at least the City Council.
But you heard our legal advisor saying we can't even hear that information.
If it's in a,
we can't even consider that.
If it's in a safe zone. That's why I believe there's deception going on in this application. There are regulations that if the beam path, if the radiation coming from those beam paths is above the safe zones, then you can act on that information.
Well, I'm not sure that's true.
Is that correct or not? That's what we were told.
Put on the overhead projector, the Telecommunications Act of 1996, so you can see what it says in black and white.
But we can't, you know, it's not doing us any good to sit here and argue the legalities involved, because we're not, you know.
That's what we base our society on. It's all about legalities. That's why we're here.
Sir, we can't consider the environmental issues that you're speaking of. We can't. You heard the lawyer say that.
Exactly. He said as long as it's within the safe zone, we cannot consider it.
I didn't say that.
I don't think he said that. That's not what I heard.
So this is
It's
what the
in the
law,
highlighted area.
This is what the law is.
It's exactly what it says.
All right. So no state or local government or instrumentality thereof may regulate the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service facilities on the basis of environmental effects of radio frequency emissions to the extent that such facilities comply with the Commission's regulations concerning such emissions. And again, when it says Commission is the FCC Commission.
Hey, please, ma'am. Okay. Well, I don't think it's clear at all. I think we have to assume that Verizon's going to comply with FCC regulations.
Why do we have to make that assumption?
Because as a body here, we have to assume that. We can't. I'm going to question them that they aren't complying with FCC regulations. What can I base that on? How in the world can I base that kind of question on? You come up to the microphone.
Please then give us the engineering report. They've taken these homes into consideration. They've done the engineering. Then you could make.
Sir, the lawyer's telling us we can't even consider that what you're talking about.
Did the lawyer tell us right now that's how he interprets that?
Yes.
Okay.
Has Verizon complied with the Commission's radio frequency requirements, Mr. Engineer?
Let's get the engineer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very
So
simple.
Verizon has complied with the FCC regulation by submitting our documentation.
Ma'am, please.
And that's the answer.
Thank you.
That's the answer. He's taking the home that's 85 feet away at the same height.
Okay. Ma'am, it's okay, sir. We already said we can't consider that.
What do you base that on?
Because we're not scientists. I can't tell you what the RV or the rays are doing.
What we base it on is the law. Okay.
The law says you can take that into consideration.
Okay.
But you're saying I don't have any.
Ma'am, sir, please. I'm going to have to close the public hearing unless you guys just want to sit out there and yell. Is there anybody else have anything they would like to add that's reasonable information for us? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. All right. We're behind the table here. I'd like to have each commissioner give your thoughts. We'll start with you, Phil.
Well, I think you've already heard most of my considerations and the fact that, as you heard, our ability is quite restricted in this area. It's not that we're not sensitive to public concerns. It's just that this is not the body that can really utilize those as a basis of a decision. So I would suggest that when this comes in front of the City Council, that you can make your comments there too. When things change, we might be able to do something else, but that's where we are. Thanks.
Okay. I didn't quite get which way you were thinking, but that's okay.
Let me just say, the Telecommunications Act of 1996 does allow for local governments to use local zoning and local land use to make determinations on the siting of towers.
That's right.
And I believe one of the audience members put on the board the Land Development Code section that's applicable.
It is.
So that's what you're using to make your determinations on.
Based on land
Not
use.
necessarily the federal government is completely precluding it. It's precluding it to the point of those 5 factors that I raised initially.
I understand. George?
Well,
What's your think?
I believe Verizon has done its due diligence in terms of taking all of the locations into account. And I certainly understand the public's and those that are affected by this. I'm not sure how the commissioners are going to vote, but I'd be willing to make a motion if it comes time here to approve this, and then we can either vote it up and down and move it it'll move to council either way. And I believe a lot of the items being discussed here today and issues, the council is better equipped to deal with than we are, aside from the FCC, and they can't touch that either. So that's where I stand.
Well, we can't just kick the can down the road either. The council's going to want to know where we're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Ken?
Wow. Maybe it's the after effects of a presidential election, but this is the most disruptive meeting I've seen in 5 years on the Planning Commission. The comments have been pretty straightforward and some of them fairly rude. But that's what we're here for. We're here to let the people talk. And we've had 2 long hearings on this subject. So I think we've done what we can to have the public's voice heard. We are informed as to what we know about this project for the issues that we're assigned to deal with. I don't know that anywhere in the Constitution, talking about FCC rules, that it says we're entitled to cell coverage and bandwidth in our homes. I think when you live in a forested community, you're going to have trees. That's what a forest is, and trees are going to block cell coverage. So some people are going to have cell coverage, some aren't. That's just what we're going to have to live with here. I don't know about the radio frequency. I don't care about the radio frequency. I think it's a bad site for a cell tower. I thought it was a bad site for a water tank. But I'm perplexed here in that This neighborhood has cell coverage, and the other neighborhoods that apparently Verizon is trying to service doesn't have as good a coverage. So that's a real conundrum here. That I'd be anxious to hear what it would be like if the neighborhood didn't have good cell coverage. We'd be hearing all the arguments about health and safety and 911 and all the stuff we've heard many times on all the cell towers we deal with. This isn't our first, I'm not going to say it, this isn't our first cell tower. So please, I would hope that we would have a better decorum in our room when we talk about these things. And if this thing moves to council and it appears there, I would really hope that we have more respect for the people who have dedicated a lot of time in looking at these things and not making little remarks that we're uninformed and we've made up our mind already. I'm not sure anybody knows that stuff. But I'm against this because I don't think it fits right there. And I think that the technology may be there otherwise to service areas that do have trees. I don't live in a fairly tree-infested area, so I don't have the issues with cell towers. And I can imagine those that do, and we hear them all the time, people don't have coverage and they want 911 or whatnot. We have landlines. There are options. You're not guaranteed that you're going to have cell coverage wherever you want it. So those are my thoughts, and I apologize for chiding you here, but we really try so hard up here. These guys work pretty hard trying to listen to what people are trying to say.
Okay. Len?
Skipping Mr. Terry.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I think I made myself pretty clear. I also cannot support this tower until I'm aware that the document that conveyed title from the property owner to the city, and my 60 years in the real estate business, there's been many opportunities where I bought and sold property with deed restrictions that are in them. And if there is a deed restriction to prohibit any other use for this property other than a water tower, then I can't support it.
Okay. I mean, other than going into the legal documents and spending a lot of time going back over those, the way I interpret Mr. Ballantyne's letter is that's the case, that he expected that there wouldn't be any other anything that affected that site visually other than the water tower. So, but there's no proof of that. Terry?
Well, I know that we spent hours considering this, and I know it is an emotional issue for the people that live in that area. Having heard both sides of the argument, and I think Verizon is to be commended. We've heard you before in past years on past cell towers, and we've had many of the same discussions brought up. Frankly, I would like to hear if in fact there are some deed restrictions that was posted other than just some language that was in a purchase and sale agreement. If it was in a purchase and sale agreement, it would not hold any water. If it's a deed restriction, then it would hold water. And so, frankly, technology is moving forward. I know it's a tough issue, but if in fact there are no deed restrictions, I would vote in favor of the cell tower going on that site.
Okay, I have two issues. One, the overwhelming negative response from the neighborhood. I mean, it's 60 plus person petitions is pretty overwhelming. So we get that really strongly. We have another cell tower coming up where it's just the opposite. We've got 60 people in favor signing a petition. So to me, the neighbor's response is probably primary importance, because we do have to. We deal with land use, and protecting the neighborhood is a priority of ours. Even though I realize that cell tower is technologically necessary in our life from now on. But in this particular case, I think the overwhelming neighborhood response would cause me to vote negatively on this project. Also, Mr. Ballantyne's letter, he clearly was under the understanding that the city would do everything they could to protect his view shed from that parcel after he sold it to the city. He said, it says, the city will mitigate the visual impact of the tank and such similar items as reasonably possible. He also says that the city will not take actions on the tank parcel which would have direct effect, maximizing the adverse visual impact. And part of the consideration that we received from the city in the sale was an agreement to protect our views to that extent possible. That's really important to me too. I mean, besides the city buying his land and making money on leasing a cell tower, that kind of smells a little bit. But his letter impressed me a lot, because it was something we weren't aware of at the last meeting. So if he certainly, as the person who sold the parcel, certainly believed that the city would protect his view shed, and that's pretty obvious. So anyway, that's where I am. Phil?
And I just want to restate that I think that is a significant issue.
I do too.
My opinion would be that without that information, I could not support this, and I need to know what that is. So I would be in denial of it until that information is made available.
Okay, well, I think we have to move ahead with this thing, get it to the city council. I don't think we can, I don't want to postpone it. So, a vote up or down?
Okay. Well, I guess I could make either motion. I think I know which way it's going to go, but I'll make a motion to approve special use permit SUP 16-001 with the modification that a block-walled compound will be constructed to mitigate the sound requirements, and there possibly could be some landscaping added to that to improve the appearance of that compound. And also that the council, if this moves to council, is well aware of the issues regarding the contract, any deed restrictions, et cetera, in the original sale of the land.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'm not sure of the motion.
He's moving to approve with some conditions.
With the condition that there be a block wall, and also that if Verizon chooses to take this to council, that the city reviews the contract to make sure there's not any restrictions on the use of that property.
If we don't get a second to his... No, if we don't, let me finish. If we don't get a second, then it goes to the city council with a negative from the commission.
No, if you don't get a second, someone else can make an alternate motion.
An alternate motion, if we don't get a second,
We
right?
can keep doing that until we get one you like.
Okay, I got it. I got it. You're going to second?
I'm going to second that motion.
Okay, I need the discussion. You want a discussion? Discuss.
These are always tough issues. When something happens in somebody's neighborhood, it's going to affect their property values. I think the other side of the equation also is for some of the other people. And I don't know this for a fact, but I got to believe I wouldn't buy a house in an area that didn't have cell coverage, so I think property values can go the other way on homes that don't have cell coverage. I think it's the wrong area for this tower. I think were the water tank not there, this topic wouldn't be here today. I think the water tank made it look like it could be an area where we might be able to collect some non-residential uses. I don't like the location. I think it's too close to the homes, despite some of the comments that came up from the back of the room here. I'm not saying this because of the comments of the people. I'm saying it because it's the wrong place, in my opinion, for a cell tower. And I want us to be clear. This will probably go to I don't know, Reg, I'm speaking for you. I don't know if you're going to drop this location or take it to council. They have the right to take it to council, even if we give a negative recommendation to council. But I think we have to look at these things as where it fits in that region, in that neighborhood, and how it impacts the neighborhood. That's what we're here for, the Land Development Code. And we're not here to guarantee you cell service. We're not here to guarantee you a view, by the way. Those come up in almost every hearing we have. It's going to destroy my property values. Where's my view going? Well, you know, buy the property. You want to protect your view, you have to buy the property. So I'm against this, but I'd like to see, if this goes to council, that we have a better presentation and a more professional one than we saw here today. And I'm sorry for bringing that one up again, but I've been against this one from the beginning.
Okay. Any other comments from commissioners? No? All right, I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have 4-2 opposed, so there'll be a negative recommendation to the City Council. All right, thank you, folks. I'm going to take about a 5-minute break.
Thank you for your comments. Thanks for your thoughtfulness. We don't buy room. I never turn on. Well, you can understand it. We get a tough job.
I'm not getting anything. Oh, there we go. Okay. All right, everybody. Public hearing item number 2, special use permit, installation of cell tower at Commerce Center Circle. George?
Thank you, sir. Just a brief history of this. As you are well aware, this area has been the subject of a previous review and request for a cell tower. Went through this commission, went to City Council. It was ultimately denied due to fall distance and setback. That location is indicated here, approximately in that corner, adjacent to a commercial building within this area that's zoned industrial, and within a few feet of the property line to Besa School just to the south. As a result of the action by City Council, Verizon went back out and looked at alternative locations, and they came up with one that is further to the north. It is on the property of the Courier's office building. That location is actually at the rear of the building in a landscaped area within a vicinity of their dumpster trash location and parking lot, employee parking lot. One of the things that we talked about last time with the request was the setback distance. The initial measurement by the city indicated that they were slightly short of the distance that's required based on the height of the tower from the tower itself to the property line, which is approximately right here. That measurement has been clarified. It is just slightly over the required setback, approximately a foot over the required setback. We scaled it with a scale, and as you know, any of you who are architects or engineers, that can be off a little bit, and that's how we ended up with a shorter distance. They are asking, will be asking for council action on the height of the antenna. Again, this zoning district being industrial has a maximum height of 50 feet. Their antenna request is 70. That requires some council relief of that height should it be council's decision to do so. They are not asking for a reduction in the setback. This area is also subject to conditions that came before this body previously, with a walled compound for the ground-mounted equipment, including the backup generator, concrete block wall surrounding that, an enclosure for the generator. We believe that will be more or less identical, if not very similar, to the proposal that was discussed thoroughly at the last application. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. This is not a stealth antenna proposal. It is a standard monopole type of antenna. You've received a lot of comments, written comments via email and letter. We've forwarded those to you, both for and against this location. And if you have questions about anything specific to the site or the criteria in the Land Development Code, I'd be happy to answer those.
All right. Commissioners, any questions? George? No?
And again, this is a public hearing for this SUP.
Okay. Mr. Destry?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, my name is Reg Destry. I'm with Reliant Land Services, and I'm representing Verizon. I'm going to keep it very short. We basically have a need. We have had a need for years here, and I think that's been borne out by some of the feedback you've gotten from the neighborhood, including the recent petition and all the folks that have been here in support. There are some concerns that have been raised, and what we're looking to do to kind of mitigate this is we are proposing a pole of it's going to be, or we're proposing it to be a corrugated, a rusted steel, and then everything painted brown. That's something that we think would probably be have the least visual impact. As far as the generator at the site, much like the last site, we would expect and certainly could take a restriction that it be cycled only 9 to 5 Monday through Friday. The ground equipment there has actually been designed in accordance with the Commercial Association standards. That's how we came up with that design for the block wall with wrought iron on top of it. We've involved them from the beginning of this process, and So we're really just looking for a recommendation of approval on this site to provide coverage. I do have a newer coverage map if you'd like to take a look at it. I know there have been questions before of, oh, the streets are not appropriately labeled, but I can kind of show the general area that a lot of the folks that have issues with. And
that's good.
That'll be about it unless you have questions. So, looking in the area, where we're proposing is going to be right over here. These are the surrounding sites that are on air. And what we're looking at is, you see kind of the red and yellow again, mediocre, if anything. And this particular area right here is actually the area that most of the folks that have put in the petition are located in. So it's a bit of a dip. It is definitely a known problem.
So the red is marginal or none, right?
Right. Okay. And then once this comes on, you're suddenly to green and yellow for that area. This site's called Smoke Tree because the intent has always been to shoot up Smoke Tree Lane. And this is right in the line with that. So I don't know if you have any particular questions, but I'm just going to keep it short because we've talked about this a lot.
Commissioners, questions?
My only concern, first of all, thanks for relocating that so it meets the setback and you're in the fall distance. How essential is it to be that tall?
The site needs to be it's 5 feet taller than the previous proposal because we lost about 5 feet of elevation. So where that's going to really help is heading back up that hill and getting over the houses, because as it starts going up the hill, you start running into the houses and it causes blockage. So getting up above the district height is absolutely necessary, and that 70 feet allows for about a 65-foot center line, which I believe is about 15 feet above the normal district height there.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Mr. Destry, no? All right, I'll open it up to the public. New information would be welcomed because we spent a lot of time on it the last meeting.
I understand. My name is Tom Collins. I'm at 1321 Sabatina, Lakeside neighborhood, Prescott Lakes. In your packet, you'll see we did put a petition out basically in the Lakeside area, which is the most affected area. There are 135 homes in Lakeside neighborhood. You'll see in your packet we got 60 signatures. I also included a map showing you exactly, with red dots on it, exactly where the service was the worst. We are not the only neighborhood. As Reg had mentioned, as you go west on Smoke Tree, there is other neighborhoods that have a problem, and you'll hear from him also. I strongly would like to have this service. Thank you.
Can you see that tower from your neighborhood?
From where I am, no.
In general, from the Lakeside neighborhood, can you see that tower?
The people closer to Prescott Lakes Parkway probably will, yes.
Okay.
And there is no.
I mean, it's almost a line. It has to be a line of sight, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah.
Well, we also have a electric tower that just got extended off a Smoke Tree that we have to put up with, and we're used to that now.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning. My name is Dick Roy. I live in the Retreat, which is across the street. It's a small development in Prescott Lakes. 27 properties, 26 built or being built. We've not submitted a packet to you. However, I'd like to add basically the entire neighborhood of the Retreat. It's really kind of interesting. People that have their doors, front doors, garage doors face to the north, you can see them standing in their garage with a garage door open talking on their cell phone. This is quite the norm. We have either no cell service or very sporadic. Myself, I live on the corner My back door faces where your tower is going to be, and the only time we talk on our cell phone is either in the back patio or against the sliding glass doors into the patio. Really, it
Have you tried holding up a golf club?
No, we have not done that, but my basic concern is really, yes, we love more service. We have 5, 6 households now that the people are 70 or 80. Smaller houses, more retired people. I'm looking at it as much from my own personal usage as a safety factor. If somebody has need for medical service, they cannot use their cell phone. I believe most everybody has landlines. 4 or 5 of us have done that as a desperation so that we have a telephone. Where we lived before moving here, we existed pretty much all on cell. So that my concern is we love it. Yes, we'll probably see part of it, the top part. However, for my patio, I'm looking 70 yards to the transmission tower that was just put in. So one more ain't going to bother me at all. And I really speak for everybody because we all kind of look at that tower. We weren't very happy when it went in earlier this year, but it's there. So visually, not a problem. We love it from a safety standpoint, but basically just so we can use our cell phones at home.
Okay.
You think it'll help your property value?
Yes, I think it will. For myself, I did not ask anybody if you have cell service when I bought the lot and built the house, and that's really a major discussion with all of us when we get the few of us together. And I have talked to 20 of the 24 people that live year-round in there. There's a few that are seasonal, and none of the 20 have any decent cell service. So,
all right, good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Need to grab my stuff.
Okay, sir. Anybody? Come on up.
I'm not going to like to hear what I have to say because I have excellent service. I even have mobile hotspots.
Ooh.
So, and I live on Marla Festanisa, 1630 Constable. I was one, I think I came here for the very first one when you were going to do it over in that one area at the lot. And I was against it then. I don't need it. When my ex-husband and I moved here, we tested our service to make sure we had service to see if it was worthwhile buying or not. And that was when we lived out in Williamson Valley. We did the same thing when we moved to Prescott Lakes. Now, I can't begrudge anybody if they don't get the service. They need to have the service. Is there any chance that this could look, oops, I'm sorry. Is there any chance that could look better? Because that's kind of ugly. I'm being honest. Maybe I'm a woman, I don't know, but at least if it's going to be there. Now, are you going to get service over in the Dells? Because I think that was a big part, because I have friends over there, and when I call, they're the ones that have to stand out there like that. The Dells are not that far from us.
Sure. If you can answer that, sure.
So I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, part of the coverage that the site will provide will be up into the Dells. Let me see here. Yep, I'm upside down. So this is the highway heading up into the Dells here. It doesn't get terribly far up into there just because of the topography and obviously going right between the rocks. It does not travel through there. But it certainly helps in that area, the residential area here, and then there's that commercial, and then there's, I believe, a large RV park right over here. Right. So it will definitely help there. As far as the visual impacts, I mean, over the years we've discussed possibly doing a pine tree, and after some neighborhood meetings, I just sort of landed upon thinking that the least intrusive means will be this proposed Core 10, We've decreased the width of the antenna array. Normally it's 12 feet, and we brought that in quite a bit, and in fact put one less antenna on each face to decrease the visual impact up high of this. So
Yeah, I think when we were discussing the previous location, and you guys were willing to do the pine tree thing, and
yeah,
we thought that would call attention to it more than just a plain pole.
Yes.
So I agree with you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Hi, my name is Wendy Madsen, and I am here
And I
as
need
a
your
representative.
address, Wendy. I need your
2188 North Highway 89, Prescott.
Okay.
I'm here as a representative of the children of the basis school. I'm not here concerned about the visual eyesore or about the conveniences or inconveniences of having a cell phone or having cell phone coverage. What I want to talk about are the potential hazards that there are to the developing brains of children. I mean, I'm so disappointed to have to be here again and really talk about this again. Seriously? A school? You want to put it close to a school? Okay, yeah, you've moved it. It's a little bit further. Okay, that's good.
Well, it was right next door
Yep.
before. That's
Yep.
why we turned it down.
I understand, and I deeply appreciate that. However, my concerns are that, sure, I can find all kinds of documentation talking about the hazards of having cell phone, that radiation near people. Other people can find all kinds of documentation talking about the non-hazards. The fact is, there is a potential hazard. There's a potential. So why do we choose an area that's so close to a school, that's so close to residents and businesses? So I'm not here to tell you anything new and groundbreaking or earth-shattering here. I'm just here to beg you to find another location, and please consider the value of our children. Having it next to a school. I mean, seriously. And I'm sorry. I know it's an inconvenience to have to stand out in your garage and talk on your cell phone. I get it. However, are we really going to put the convenience above the health and safety of our children? Really? You know, are we really, to me, if you approve this, what you're saying is we don't really value our children in our communities that much.
No, I don't think that would be true.
That's just what it says to me.
If we approved it, we would be saying that the FCC knows what they're doing, and they say it's not dangerous.
Yep, that's what they say.
If it's done properly.
Right, that's what they say.
And that's the legal advice we're getting from our attorney as to the 1996 or whatever the year was, that we can't make a decision based on this supposedly argument about radiation, whatever, and it's beyond most of us. I mean, give me a deed and I'll understand it. Talk to me about physics and boy, am I lost.
Right. Yeah, I understand.
So we moved it primarily to get it away from the school and to mitigate those, and I think that the location they've got now works as far as the majority of the areas. Now, if it was another 100 feet, would that make you more satisfied that it's that much farther from the basis school or not even in the area? So
perhaps. I just need to...
Well, I can't make a decision based on the science that you're asking us to.
Sure, and I'm not necessarily just saying the science. I'm just saying it's a potential hazard. And so why do we choose a school location?
Well,
why?
Living is a potential hazard.
Very true. Very true.
Okay, ma'am. Appreciate your comments.
Ma'am, do you work with the basis school? Are you?
I'm a parent, and I did work as a school nurse for a while for them. But no, I'm not working there now. I'll sub as a school nurse.
All right, thank you. I know that when we were discussing the original submittal by the school, we must have taken a look at 4 or 5 different locations, right, Mr. Destry? I remember specifically we were saying, well, how about here, and what about there, and what if we move it over here? And
there were about 7 other
possibilities.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, again.
I'm sure you recognize me, Elise Rose, St. Andrews Way. First, I'd like to address the city attorney's comments about the Supreme Court ruling, which are misleading and do not give the whole picture. The reason for the Supreme Court's decision was not the format or reasoning behind the Roswell, Georgia city's council rejection, but the amount of time it took to publish the response to the mobile carrier, 26 days. And this was from Forbes. So that was a little misleading. The 1996 Telecommunications Act, he put the tenet up that says you can't deny a location on the basis of health. However, there's also another tenet, and I didn't bring that. I'm not a lawyer, maybe I should have been, which also says that the consumers have a right to protection. And I will be bringing that up before City Council. So I'm just curious as to why the city attorney's views seem to be slanted in the favor of Verizon. And I will give you some facts about other cities that have questioned that. But so just food for thought there. I would also like to clear up a couple of things from October 27th. The man from Florida in shorts stated that they cannot put a cell tower at Twin Lakes. Well, sir, if you're here, and I don't see anybody in shorts here, AT&T already has an existing tower there at the Twin Lakes Market. One of the tenets of the Land Development Code is to co-locate. The commission and the city directed Mr. Destry to look for other locations. I had asked if statements made prior by Mr. Destry saying there is no room for his enclosure at Twin Lakes Market with the existing AT&T tower had been verified. If only one diesel generator is needed, which AT&T has, why would Verizon's shed have to be the same size proposed for the courier location? I addressed in our last meeting on October 27th the reasons why Verizon and the courier owner want this location. So why would, if there's only one diesel generator, why would Verizon shed have to be the same size proposed for the courier location? Once again, it looks like there is enough room. There is also commercial property at Prescott Lakes Parkway in 89. The elevation looks good. They could aim it directly at the constable.
Ma'am, all we can do is act on the proposal that's before us. We can't be going all over the city and saying, what about this, what about that? We're not scientists. You're not a scientist.
Yeah, but
I mean, so you know a lot more than Verizon does?
Well, you have to look at the reasons that Verizon wants this location.
Well, I can't read their mind.
Okay, well.
Can you?
If I did, I'd be in my overwater villa in Bora Bora with my crystal ball.
Right, so you don't know what they're thinking.
And I want this, Dana, please, as part of the city record, my questions as to anybody has verified Mr. Destry's statement. That's what I'm asking, because you originally, asked for other locations. Okay, so. Sadly, a woman from Constable came up to me October 27th with hate in her eyes and her voice, and asked if I wanted her to die from a heart attack because I talked about the negative impact and the negative effects on property values of cell towers close to homes and a school. HUD categorizes cell towers as hazards and nuisances. I stated those facts before because, for example, that you probably will have to disregard statements such as, in May 2011, the World Health Organization classified the type of radiation that cell towers emit as a Class 2 carcinogen, meaning possibly carcinogenic to humans.
Ma'am, we can't get into the science of radiation.
No, I'm not finished. Or that the American Association of Pediatrics raises concerns that children may be more vulnerable. Okay, so my next point is, to the Constable lady, what happens if you don't have, and the other people from Constable, what happens if you don't have your cell phone on you?
Cell phone calls to 911 often do not give an address. They have to ping off a tower and only are accurate within a certain short range. From Los Angeles, KMBC, Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors approved a motion to stop construction of cell towers at fire stations and request more research on the issue. You know, my
Okay, ma'am. You know what? We're going around in circles here. We know you're opposed to it. We know.
and I do have some other.
A lot of those points are not pertinent at all.
Okay. Well, I do have some points that are. You know, once again, why should the results of redirecting the array on the 89 tower to Smoke Tree, as advised by Mr. Destry that they were going to do, be known and see if it helps the people on Constable and Sabatina before you approve building another cell tower? If it doesn't help these folks, is Verizon going to take that tower down?
That's Verizon's decision. They're coming here and making a proposal, asking us to act on that proposal. So that's what we're acting on. That's what we deal with. The land use of that particular tower that they're requesting.
Okay. Well, as attested to many times, most Prescott Lakes residents have very good coverage. If this and I'm finishing up, if this oversaturation tower is approved, I request in consideration of the basis school children's developing brains, the sake of the Legacy apartment and the cottages, that the array and the RF radiation rays not be aimed at us, but rather directed high over and well above us to Smoke Tree and Constable. If Verizon's stated need for this tower is to reach people on Constable. And finally, the California Public Utilities Commission, among others, has urged that cell towers not be placed near schools or hospitals. There seems to be a desire by Verizon to erect new towers in Prescott with oversaturation for the sake of dominance. Did you know that there are 17 cell towers in Prescott alone, not including Prescott Valley?
Except we're only looking at the coverage in this area, and I've got a petition here from 70 people saying that they have lousy cell phone.
On Constable, which is a good mile or so away. This is not
it's closer than that.
This is not like putting a chicken in every
Okay,
pot.
man, I'm going to have to stop you. We're going around in circles here. I think we know where you stand. Thank you. Anybody else? Nope. Okay. I'm going to close the public hearing, folks. All right, commissioners, comments?
As I stated previously, I am extremely sensitive to Prescott Basis School and the children there. I am currently a member of the Prescott Basis School Advisory Council, and I'm also university trained in biological sciences. I spent over 35 years in healthcare senior management, and I'm very familiar with scientific studies. And of course, we are restricted from using any concerns about radio frequency emissions in our decision. But that said, I have reviewed substantially the amount of evidence and studies available, and this tower is over 400 meters away from the school. I see no significant evidence that there is a reasonable concern in that area, and I'm glad that we have moved the tower location to a more appropriate location. Unfortunately, we don't have a forest where we can hide this tower. I have walked almost all the neighborhoods and looked at the sight lines, and I think it's a substantial benefit to most of the residents, and I would support it.
George?
Well, like the other proposal, the other cell tower, I'm available to make a motion to approve this. I know as far as the appearance, that's been vetted. There are high-power electrical lines that there was no consideration of their color and no buffering or anything. That, of course, we didn't have any influence on that. And then the APS lines along Wellow Lake Road are almost identical to what is being proposed here, and so this will be one tower among many others within close proximity. So I think this is a good project, and I'm ready to move it forward.
Okay, Ken, do you have any comments?
Yes, I have to commend Mr. Destry for his tenacity. He got shot down a couple of times here on this particular site, and I was never totally opposed to the site. I was opposed to where it was initially because it was right next to a couple of office buildings and whatnot. And I lived in that area. I used to live on St. Andrews Way not too long ago. And I certainly saw the towers. I remember at the last hearing that I was at in this issue, I suggested you go talk to APS about putting a cell tower on top of the electric towers. And I don't know why that still can't happen, but I'm sure there's 100 reasons. But I'm going to start having my wife carry my cell phone because I'm a little concerned about the RF frequency, so that she can have the RF frequency and not me. But beyond that, I think it's a good location, so I'm all for it.
Terry?
I have no comment after
I don't want to touch that. Len?
No comment.
Okay.
Other than, again, I want to thank Verizon's effort. This came before us, and it came before us, and they've done their due diligence, and I'm pleased with what they came up with.
Okay, George.
Okay. Move to approve special use permit SUP 16-002 for the installation of a cell tower at 1958 Commerce Center Circle. The generator cycling should be only allowed between 9 and 5 Monday through Friday.
All right. They have a second.
I'll second that.
Okay. Commissioners, any comments or questions? How often does that generator, it's just a backup generator, right? So it's just tested every once in a while. So the only thing running all the time is a cooling fan, which is electric, right? Okay.
And, I will comment that Mr. Destry met with the association, the commercial association. They're members of the residential association as far as the aesthetics, and they went over the building, the compound structure, and so on and so forth to be compatible with the neighborhood, and that was supported by those.
Any other comment? Any other discussion? No. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Thank you, folks. All right. We have anything else?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman. We're good.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Adjourned? Why, it's only 11:15.
George, I haven't gotten my paycheck.
in 2.5 hours.